I never thought I'd be that woman. The one who scrolls through her husband's phone at 2 in the morning, hands shaking, heart pounding so hard it drowns out reason. But there I was, staring at a message that made my stomach twist into a knot so tight I could barely breathe. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was perfect. The message wasn't from me. I remember sitting there, frozen, the blue glow of the screen lighting my face. My husband, Mark, was asleep right beside me, breathing steadily like nothing in the world could touch him. I studied his face, the soft curve of his jaw, the faint scar near his temple from when we first met hiking in Colorado. It was like staring at a stranger I used to know. We'd been married for 8 years. 8 quiet, seemingly steady years. People called us the perfect couple. We laughed at dinner parties, traveled every summer, and posted those curated little snapshots that made everyone say, goals. But lately something felt off. It started small. He'd take his phone with him everywhere, even to the shower. He started working late, to long nights at the office, meetings that didn't make sense when I asked for details. You wouldn't understand, babe, he'd say, kissing my forehead like he was tucking away my questions. The change was so subtle at first that I almost convinced myself I was paranoid. He was tired. He was stressed. Everyone has rough patches. But then came the cologne I didn't recognize, the faint shimmer of lip gloss on his collar, the late-night texts he'd smile at before locking his phone. My gut screamed, but my heart begged me to stay quiet. Because if I asked if I really looked, I might not like what I found. Then one night, my best friend, Lila, came over for wine. She's known me since college, the kind of friend who finishes your sentences and tells you when your eyeliner's uneven. We talked about work, life, everything. And then I mentioned it just casually like it was no big deal, that I thought Mark might be distant. Her expression flickered, just for a second. Something in her eyes tightened, but she smiled too quickly. You're overthinking, she said, brushing it off. Mark adores you. That should have comforted me. But it didn't. The next week, I decided to do something I never thought I would. I downloaded one of those fake trip apps, the ones that track your partner's location under the guise of planning a vacation together. I told Mark I was organizing a surprise getaway for our anniversary. He laughed, kissed me, and said, "You're too good to me." Then, the following Friday, when he said he'd be working late again, I checked the app. He wasn't at the office. He was at a hotel. The kind of sleek, modern one with tinted windows and $20 cocktails in the lobby. I sat in my car outside for 15 minutes, trying to decide what kind of woman I wanted to be, the one who walks away quietly or the one who needs to see the truth, no matter how much it hurts. I chose the latter. I walked in, asked for the room number under his name, and somehow, by some cosmic cruelty, the receptionist didn't even blink. "Room 407, she said, like she was reading out a grocery list. My hand trembled as I knocked. No answer. I could hear muffled laughter inside. Her laughter. When the door finally opened, Mark stood there shirtless, his hair messy, his expression pale as death. Behind him, I saw Lila, my best friend, wearing my husband's shirt. The silence that followed felt like a black hole swallowing the air around us. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just looked at them, two people who were supposed to be my safe places, and realized they'd both been lying for months. "It's not what it looks like," he said. Classic. I almost laughed. "Really?" I whispered. "Because it looks like my husband and my best friend are sharing a hotel room." Lila started crying, babbling about how it just happened, how she didn't mean to fall for him. And Mark, that coward, just stood there, saying nothing. I left. I didn't even pack a bag. I drove until the highway lights blurred into streaks and my tears finally dried. For weeks, I lived in a fog. Friends reached out, my mom came to stay with me, but I felt hollow. Betrayal isn't just heartbreak, it's identity theft. It steals the version of you that believed in love, in loyalty, in forever. But then, about 2 months later, I found something that changed everything again. An email. One Mark had accidentally left logged in on my laptop. It was from a lawyer. Apparently, months before the affair started, he'd been planning to file for separation. He'd met with Lila to talk through how to handle me gently. That's when it started between them. She'd been the shoulder he leaned on. She'd been his confidant. So maybe, in some twisted way, I'd been the outsider long before I found out. I didn't confront them again. Instead, I took everything, every receipt, every message, every lie, and handed it to my lawyer. The divorce was clean, quiet, and brutal. I walked away with the house, the car, and the satisfaction of knowing I didn't need revenge. Because the real revenge is peace. Still, sometimes late at night, I wonder if I hadn't checked his phone, would I still be living that pretty little lie? Would I still think my best friend was my sister in all but blood? Tell me, what would you do if you caught your best friend with your husband? The weeks after the divorce felt like walking through fog, thick, heavy, endless. I'd wake up in the middle of the night expecting to hear his breathing next to me, that soft hum he used to make when he dreamt. The bed felt too big, too quiet. And even though I hated what he'd done, the absence of him was still a wound that bled slowly. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just destroy love, it poisons memory. Every happy moment you ever shared becomes infected, tainted by what came after. I tried to rebuild my life. I threw myself into work, took on extra projects, stayed late just to avoid coming home to silence. My coworkers whispered at first. They all knew, of course. Small towns have a way of turning pain into gossip. Did you hear? Mark ran off with her best friend. She looked so perfect online, didn't she? It was humiliating, but I pretended I didn't care. I smiled, I showed up, I acted fine. Then one day, about 4 months after it all blew up, I ran into them. It wasn't planned. I was at the grocery store just grabbing a few things when I turned the corner, and there they were, Mark and Lila, standing by the fruit aisle like some twisted domestic scene. He had his arm around her, and she was laughing at something he said, her hand resting on his chest like she belonged there. My whole body froze. She noticed me first. The laughter died on her lips, and she dropped her hand, looking like she'd seen a ghost. Mark turned, and for a second, there was guilt in his eyes, but then it shifted into something else. Pity. That was worse. He nodded slightly like we were casual acquaintances, like 8 years of marriage meant nothing. I wanted to run, but instead, I stood tall, lifted my chin, and walked past them. I even smiled. Leela. Mark. My voice didn't shake, but my heart did. She mumbled something, trying to apologize, but I just said, "Don't. You made your choice. Both of you did." Then I walked away. I made it to the parking lot before my hands started trembling. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, feeling this mix of rage and sorrow boiling inside me. It wasn't just about them being together, it was that they looked happy. Like I'd been the problem all along. That night, I couldn't sleep. I poured a glass of wine, sat by the window, and scrolled through old photos. Weddings, birthdays, trips, all those smiles that now looked like lies. And then I noticed something I'd never seen before. In one of the older pictures, taken maybe 2 years before the affair, there was a glance. Lila looking at Mark, not the way a friend looks at your husband, but the way a woman looks at a man she wants. It was subtle, hidden behind laughter, but it was there. How long had it been happening before I noticed? Had I been blind, or had they just been that good at hiding? The next morning, I woke up with a decision. I wasn't going to be the victim anymore. I didn't want revenge, not in the dramatic sense, but I wanted closure. Real closure. I started writing. At first, it was just journaling, getting everything out of my head. But the more I wrote, the more it turned into something else. A story. A story about love, betrayal, and starting over. I posted the first part online, under a fake name. I didn't expect anyone to read it. But they did. Thousands did. Comments poured in from women all over the world saying they'd lived the same story. Some were still trapped in it. Some had escaped. Some were still bleeding. And suddenly, I didn't feel so alone. A few weeks later, I got a message from an anonymous account. It said, "You think you know the whole story, but you don't." I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. The account sent another message. Lila wasn't the first. My stomach dropped. I asked who it was, but they never replied. I couldn't stop thinking about it. What if Mark had been cheating long before Lila? What if everything I thought I discovered was just the tip of something bigger? I didn't want to care anymore, but I needed to know. So I called someone who would know, his old coworker, Jamie. We'd met a few times at company parties. She sounded surprised to hear from me, but agreed to meet for coffee. When we sat down, she looked nervous, like she was about to break a rule. I don't know what you've heard, she said, but Mark, he wasn't who you think he was. I just stared. What do you mean? She hesitated. There was someone else. Before Lila. Maybe 2 years before. A client, I think. Everyone in the office knew, but we didn't know how to tell you. My throat tightened. A client?
Yeah.
Some woman named Vanessa. She came around a lot. There were rumors she was helping him get funding for that real estate project he worked on. But they were close. Too close. I felt sick. I thought Lila was the betrayal, but apparently, she was just the latest chapter in a story I didn't know I was in. When I got home, I went through my old photos again. There it was, one from a charity dinner 2 years before everything fell apart. Mark, smiling, arm around a woman I didn't recognize. Vanessa. I remember he told me she was just a client. I believed him. That night, I cried for a long time. Not for losing him, but for every time I doubted myself. For every instinct I silenced because I wanted to believe the best in him. But here's the strange part. The next morning, I woke up and felt lighter. Like the final piece of the lie had finally crumbled. There was nothing left to wonder about, nothing left to lose. A month later, I decided to sell the house. Too many ghosts in those walls. While packing, I found something in the attic I didn't expect, an old box of Mark's things he must have forgotten. Inside were letters, cards, old receipts, and one envelope addressed to me, in his handwriting. It wasn't sealed. The letter wasn't an apology. It was a confession. He wrote that he'd fallen out of love long before the affair. That he didn't know how to leave without breaking me. That he'd convinced himself staying was kinder. He even admitted he'd started seeing other women just to feel alive again. Reading it, I felt this strange mix of disgust and pity. He wasn't a villain, not really, just weak. Too weak to be honest, too selfish to let go. I burned the letter that night. Watched the paper curl and blacken until it was nothing but ash. And for the first time in years, I felt free. I moved to a new city a few weeks later. Started fresh. New job, new apartment, new friends. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear the echo of my old life. The laughter, the lies, the love that wasn't real. It's strange, isn't it? How someone can destroy your world and still live in it rent-free inside your mind. I've learned that closure doesn't come from them saying sorry. It comes from accepting that the person you loved never existed the way you thought they did. Still, sometimes I wonder if he called tomorrow and said he regretted everything, would I even want to hear it? What would you do if the person who betrayed you wanted forgiveness after shattering your trust beyond repair? 6 months had passed since I burned that letter, and I thought I was doing fine. Really, I did. I'd built a new life in the city, a tiny apartment on the 4th floor of a quiet building that smelled like coffee and rain, a job at a design firm where no one knew my past, and a morning routine that felt almost peaceful. Every day, I'd walk to the corner cafe, order the same caramel latte, and sit by the window with my laptop, writing stories for the online community that had unknowingly saved me. People loved my posts, though they didn't know they were reading pieces of my own broken heart stitched into fiction. Sometimes, I'd get messages from women saying my words helped them leave their own toxic relationships. That gave me a purpose. It made me feel like maybe all that pain had meant something. But peace is fragile. It cracks when you least expect it. One morning, as I sat in that cafe, I looked up and froze. Mark was standing outside, staring straight at me through the glass. My stomach dropped. For a split second, I thought I was imagining it, that my brain was conjuring ghosts again. But no, it was him. Older, maybe thinner, a little rougher around the edges, but unmistakably him. He opened the door and stepped inside like we were two old friends casually meeting for coffee. "Hi, Claire," he said softly. I hadn't heard my name from his mouth in almost a year. It felt foreign. I didn't say anything. My instinct was to leave, but my legs wouldn't move. He gestured to the seat across from me. Can I? I should have said no. I should have told him to get lost. But curiosity is a cruel thing. It makes you listen when you know you shouldn't. So I nodded. He sat down, fidgeting with the paper sleeve on his coffee cup. You look good, he said. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You don't get to say that anymore.
He winced.
You're right. Silence stretched between us. I could feel the weight of everything unspoken, the betrayal, the lies, the ghost of who we used to be.
Finally, he sighed.
I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, but I needed to tell you something. Why now? I asked. After everything? What could you possibly have left to say? He rubbed his temples, exhaling slowly. Lila's gone. My chest tightened. Gone. She left, he said. A few months ago. Took half my savings and disappeared. I think she was seeing someone else. I stared at him, searching his face. There it was, the irony, the karma. The man who broke my trust had been broken in the same way. And for a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I guess you got a taste of your own medicine, I said quietly. He nodded, eyes downcast.
Yeah.
I deserve it. I thought that would satisfy me, that seeing him lost and regretful would feel like justice. But it didn't. There was no satisfaction, just exhaustion. I came to apologize, he continued. Not to get you back. I know that's impossible. But I wanted to tell you I'm sorry for everything. For lying, for cheating, for making you feel like you weren't enough. You were. I just wasn't. I wanted to say something cruel, to throw every ounce of pain back at him, but the words wouldn't come. All I felt was empty, like he was a story I'd already finished reading. I don't hate you, Mark, I finally said. But I don't care anymore either. You took years of my life and twisted them into something ugly. I've spent too long trying to untangle myself from that. He looked like he wanted to say more, but I stood up. I hope you find peace, I said, meaning it more than I expected. But you won't find it here. Then I walked out. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. 2 weeks later, I started getting strange emails. No subject lines, no sender name, just messages like, he's not telling you everything, or ask him about the account. At first, I ignored them, assuming it was spam. But then one message included a photo. It was of me sitting in the cafe, same table, same seat, taken from outside the window. I felt cold all over. Someone was watching me. I went to the police, but they couldn't do much.
Could be a prank, they said.
Maybe an ex, maybe a scammer. Block the address and stay alert.
Easy for them to say.
For days, I barely slept. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every sound in the hallway made me flinch. Finally, I decided to confront Mark. I hadn't planned on ever seeing him again, but something told me this was connected. I found his number and called. He answered on the second ring. Claire? His voice sounded surprised. Did you send those emails? I demanded. What emails? The ones with pictures of me. Someone's watching me, Mark. Don't lie to me. He sounded genuinely confused. Claire, I swear, I have no idea what you're talking about. But I could hear something in his voice, a hesitation, like there was more he wasn't saying. Then, why did someone tell me to ask you about the account? Silence. Then, softly, you shouldn't have gotten involved in that. My blood ran cold. Involved in what, Mark? He hesitated again. It's not what you think. Just be careful, okay? Be careful? You don't get to be cryptic after everything. Tell me what's going on. I can't, he said. They'll come after me too. Then he hung up. I tried calling back, but the number was disconnected. I sat there staring at my phone, my heart racing. It was like I'd stumbled into a different kind of betrayal, one that had nothing to do with love. The next morning, I woke up to find a single envelope slipped under my apartment door. No name, no return address. Inside was a flash drive and a note. He wasn't just lying to you. He was lying to everyone. I didn't know whether to plug it in or call the police. But curiosity, my old, dangerous friend, won again. I opened my laptop and inserted the drive. Inside was a folder labeled C. Dozens of documents, spreadsheets, and scanned contracts filled the screen. Offshore accounts, wire transfers, large sums of money moved through shell companies. And all of them had one thing in common: Mark's signature. He hadn't just cheated on me, he'd been laundering money. The realization hit like ice water. He'd used our joint accounts, our home, even my name on some of the paperwork. My hand started shaking as I realized what that meant. If someone was investigating him, I could be implicated too. I called the lawyer who handled our divorce, sent her the files, and she told me to keep quiet and stay away from Mark. If what you found is real, she said, this could get dangerous. A week later, I saw the news headline: local businessman under investigation for financial fraud. His face, the one I'd once loved, was plastered across the screen. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt numb. He destroyed everything he touched: our marriage, our friends, his own life. I never saw him again after that. They said he left town before charges were filed. Disappeared. No one knew where he went. Sometimes, when I walk home at night, I still feel like someone's watching me. Maybe it's just paranoia. Or maybe it's the ghost of what we were, refusing to die quietly. And yet, through all of it, I learned something. Love doesn't always end in heartbreak. Sometimes it ends in revelation. And the scariest part isn't what you find out about the other person. It's what you discover about yourself when you finally stop believing the lies. But still, I can't help wondering. If Mark showed up again, if he knocked on my door, saying he wanted to explain everything once and for all, would I let him in? What would you do if the person who shattered your heart came back? Not for love, but to drag you into the secrets they were hiding all along. A month passed after his face disappeared from the news. Life, somehow, began to quiet again. The investigation closed in on him, but no one ever found where he went. Sometimes, I wondered if he was alive, if he'd started over somewhere else under a different name, charming another woman with the same lies he used on me. Then one night, I came home to find a small package sitting by my door. No return address. Just my name, written in that same familiar handwriting. My stomach twisted. I almost left it there, but curiosity, stupid, relentless curiosity, pulled me in again. Inside was a simple wooden box. No note. No explanation. Just one thing inside. My wedding ring. The same ring I'd thrown into a drawer after the divorce. Except now, it had been polished, shining, almost new, and engraved on the inside with 3 words that hadn't been there before. You never knew. My knees nearly gave out. I called the police, but there were no fingerprints, no trace of who delivered it. Just that ring, sitting on my kitchen table like a ghost of the past refusing to die. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the hallway sounded like a step closer. Every whisper of wine through the window felt like a presence watching me. I started locking every door twice, leaving lights on. But deep down, I knew he was out there. Somewhere. Watching. Weeks passed and nothing happened. Eventually, fear turned into numbness again. I told myself it was over. That it was just his way of reminding me he still existed, his last little power play. And then one morning, I got an email from an unknown address. No subject line. Just one sentence. Check under the tree where we first met. My hands shook as I read it. I shouldn't have gone. I knew I shouldn't have gone. But I did. The old oak tree stood by the hiking trail where Mark and I had first met all those years ago. It was late afternoon, the forest quiet except for the hum of cicadas. I walked slowly toward the tree, scanning the ground until I saw it, a small envelope, half buried under the roots. Inside was a photo.
Me.
Sitting in my new apartment, working on my laptop, completely unaware. And written on the back, in his handwriting, "You never really left me." I froze. My breath caught. Because in that instant, I realized something horrifying. These weren't old pictures. They were recent. He knew where I lived. He'd never left at all. I ran. Called the police again.
Moved the next week.
Changed my number, my locks, everything. And for months afterward, nothing. Silence. Maybe he finally vanished for good. Or maybe he's still out there, watching from a distance, waiting for the right moment to remind me he still can. Sometimes, when I catch my reflection in a dark window, I swear I see movement behind me. Just a shadow. Maybe it's him. Maybe it's just the ghost of who I used to be. Either way, I've learned one thing. You can survive betrayal, rebuild your life, even forgive. But you never truly outrun the past. It follows you quietly, breathing just behind your shoulder. So tell me, what would you do if the person who betrayed you once started haunting your life again? Not with love, but with reminders that they're still out there watching?